Things are getting heated in the Delhi High Court. We're talking about a top political leader going head-to-head with a sitting judge. There are accusations of bias flying around, whispers of a political vendetta, and a legal battle that has completely jumped out of the courtroom and right onto your social media feed. So what happens when the scales of justice get tangled up in politics? Let's break it all down.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Can a chief minister who's in the middle of this massive corruption case actually stand up in court and say, you know what, I don't think I can get a fair trial from you?
So is this a real principled stand for a fair hearing? A genuine fear of bias? Or is it a brilliant, calculated move in a high-stakes game of legal chess, designed to throw the other side off balance? And maybe the biggest question of all, when courtroom arguments are being live-streamed and turned into political weapons, what happens to the very idea of justice itself? Who actually comes out on top? Okay, before we get into the nitty-gritty of this legal and political firestorm, if you're looking for analysis that actually cuts through all the noise, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button for Kanoonplus. We give you the real story behind the headlines without the boring lectures. All right, so the whole thing kicked off when Arvind Kejriwal was in front of the Delhi High Court. Now, the prosecution was there to challenge a lower court's decision that had gone his way. But Kejriwal's team, well, they had other plans. They weren't just there to fight the case. Their real target? It was the judge herself. Kejriwal's lawyers basically dropped a legal bombshell. They filed an application for the judge, Justice Swarna Kanta Sharma, to recuse herself, to just step away from the case entirely. And their reasons? Wow, they were explosive. First, they pointed out her attendance at events for the Adv Parishad, an organization they say is ideologically linked to the BJP and RSS. Their argument was, hey, we're their main political opponent, how can we possibly get a fair hearing? They also brought up a potential conflict of interest, pointing out that the judge's children work under the Solicitor General, the guy who is literally leading the case against Kejriwal. The key argument here wasn't just about whether justice would be done, it was about the age-old principle that justice must be seen to be done.
Now, to really get why this showdown in the High Court is so incredibly intense, we have to rewind a little bit, because just before this fight, Kejriwal's team had already scored a huge victory that pretty much set the stage for everything that was about to happen. The timeline here is actually pretty simple, but it's powerful. So first, the case gets filed in the excise policy matter. Then it goes to the trial court. The court looks at all the evidence and does something really significant. It discharges Arvind Kejriwal. And it's that discharge order that the prosecution immediately takes to the Delhi High Court, which is how the whole thing lands right in front of Justice Sharma's bench.
So what in the world is a discharge? It's super important to understand this. It's not the same as an acquittal, which means you're found innocent after a full trial. No, a discharge happens way earlier. It's basically the court saying, look, based on everything you've shown me so far, there isn't even enough material here to start a trial. It's like a massive legal stop sign right at the beginning of the road.
And believe me, this was not just some technical legal win. Politically, this was absolute gold for Kejriwal. It gave him and his party the perfect ammunition to frame the entire case as a baseless political vendetta. It handed them a powerful narrative. See? We told you. Even the court agrees there's no case here. And that victory is exactly why the prosecution's appeal in the High Court turned into such a bitter all-or-nothing fight. Okay, so let's get back to the High Court. This is where it all escalates into a direct, head-on collision between two powerful and completely opposite legal arguments. This is where the real fireworks begin. This slide really lays it all out, doesn't it? You have two completely different worlds colliding. On one side, Kejriwal's team is arguing that even the perception or apprehension of bias is enough. They're saying, look, in a case this political, a judge's associations matter because justice has to be seen to be impartial. But on the other side, the prosecution, led by Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, comes back swinging with a very, very serious accusation. They claim this isn't about fairness at all. They call it bench hunting. And let me tell you, bench hunting is a really loaded term in legal circles. It's basically accusing someone of trying to game the system. It means you're trying to get away from a judge you think might be tough on you, and instead go shopping for a judge who you think will be more friendly to your case. The prosecution argued that if the court allows this, it would open the floodgates for anyone to just badmouth a judge to get their case moved. But this whole debate didn't just stay between the two parties. The controversy blew up and raised a much bigger question for the entire legal community. What are the ethical lines for a sitting judge, especially in a world that's so politically divided? And then a voice from the very top of the judiciary decided to weigh in. And this was a bombshell. This comment came from a recently retired Supreme Court judge, Justice Obey S. Oka. He was speaking at an event and said that if he were a sitting judge and got an invitation like that, he would have politely said no, just to avoid any possible perception of political bias. Now, he's not saying Justice Sharma is biased, but his comment adds a ton of weight to that whole argument about perception and what's appropriate for a judge. And this really gets to the legal heart of the matter. The argument isn't about proving that the judge has some kind of actual demonstrable prejudice. It's all about perception. Kejriwal's team is arguing that the circumstances create a reasonable apprehension, a reasonable fear that things might not be impartial. And they say that fear alone is enough to damage public faith in the whole system. The focus shifts from what's in the judge's head to what's in the public's mind. Of course, in this day and age, a fight this explosive was never going to stay locked away in a courtroom. The legal strategy almost instantly became a PR strategy, as the battle was taken directly to the court of public opinion. And then they made a very controversial move. Kejriwal's team recorded and released his speech from the court proceedings online, and it went absolutely viral. The High Court's reaction was immediate and harsh. It called the publication illegal and ordered the Delhi police to get those videos taken down from every social media platform pronto. But you know how the internet works. The cat was already out of the bag. The line between a serious legal proceeding and viral political content had been completely erased. Courtroom arguments were no longer just for the judge to hear. They were packaged, clipped, and fired off as weapons in a much larger war for narrative control. So, where does all this leave us? When a court case turns into a national spectacle like this, you have to zoom out and ask what's really at stake. Not just for the people involved, but for the very institutions that are supposed to be above all this. The fallout here is messy. For Kejriwal, does this move successfully paint him as the victim of a biased system, or does it risk making him look like he's just attacking the judiciary? For the courts, it's a tightrope walk. How do you handle these kinds of accusations without either giving in to pressure or looking like you're just ignoring valid concerns? And for all of us, the public, how are we supposed to keep faith in the justice system when it starts to look just like another political circus?
And this, right here, is the bottom line. The biggest danger in all of this is the erosion of trust. When the lines between law, politics, and media just dissolve into one big reality TV show, the institutions that are supposed to be our impartial protectors start to look compromised. And when that happens, everybody loses.
So we come back to that central nagging question. Was this a genuine fear of bias from someone who truly felt they couldn't get a fair shake? Or was it a brilliantly played legal and political move designed to control the entire narrative from the very beginning? Ultimately, what did we just watch? Was it a fight for justice? Or was it just the latest battle for narrative control? And should judges avoid any and all platforms that could even create a perception of bias? I really want to know what you think, so drop your take in the comments below. And for more deep dives that separate the legal facts from the political fiction, make sure you're subscribed to Kanoonplus.